following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Mets baseball in the zone. And if I sound overly enthusiastic, I'm not. Basically, the season's over, and it's always a big downer for me. How do you guys feel about it? Robert Cole and Marty Rose. Start with you, Marty.
Hey, good evening, guys. Well, yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, besides not being able to watch the games, it's the seasonal change, you know, where it's dark early, and
yeah, I didn't know you got that in Florida. You've been writing about that.
I could talk about the cold, but we don't have the cold here.
It does get dark.
It does get dark, as George Carlin used to say. Yeah.
Right.
Tonight's
the
forecast.
hippie weatherman. Well, it'll be cold in the morning.
Tonight's forecast dark. Yeah, that was it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's
I'm
the way
really
I
surprised that there's a drastic change in weather in Florida. I thought it was pretty much the same all year round.
Well, in where I am right now in northern Florida, it's still summer-like. It's upper 80s, 90 over the weekend, but yeah, it really doesn't cool off until late October, November, and actually in the dead of winter here in Jacksonville, it does get like overnight. It can get into the upper 30s. It does occasionally, but most of the time it doesn't get colder than the 40s at night in the middle of the winter. And then in the daytime, you got, 60s, maybe 70, so it's real nice. Never need
pretty
more than
much like Northern California. And imagine how our listeners in Minsk are sympathizing with your plight.
Or Montana.
Minsk.
Yeah.
What about the Dakota? They had a blizzard over the weekend.
Yeah, Montana had 3 feet of snow or something like that already.
Really? I didn't hear about that. Let's talk a little bit of Mets ball. Callaway is still hanging in there, and it's Monday night, and we all thought that the decision would have been made after the game, announced after the game, or at latest on Monday morning. And it was announced that he's not going to be invited to the organizational meetings. I can't see that being a plus for his job security. Robert?
I initially wrote about that on the Mets website, but then after thinking about it, I realized, I read that Wilpon has had a meeting with Mickey just within the last day or so, asking him what he thought they needed to do. And as we know, Mickey is basically a puppet. Let's be honest. So he doesn't really have to be part of the organizational meeting. All he has to do is play who he's given and, toe the line. So, on second thought, as I also wrote, I'm beginning to think that Mickey will be back. As Marty has said several times, the Wilpons don't want to pay 2 managers, and that's been their history. Mickey signed for another year, and so why not bring him back? Because basically all he does is sit in the dugout and do what he's told to do. And that's just being honest.
Yeah, and he's got a bench coach for help, too. So.
Yeah.
I see him sitting next to the pitching coach, the vulture, Reagan, but I never see Riggleman in shots to the dugout, I don't see them that close. I don't see them communicating during a game. He's aloof during a game. He's not chatting with anybody. He seems to be off by himself. Do you get that, Marty?
Maybe. I've seen him on TV a couple of times, talking to Mickey. But like you said, not often and not regularly for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
and, you have to also remember that, there were all those rumors from early on that he might be named the manager. So I would kind of guess that he would be sort of aloof, to the side, not wanting to get caught up in the muck, and at the same time, he's got a job to do too. So.
Right. Well, let's go over their supposed foundation. When I put Rosario's accomplishments into order in my head, how his advancements over the year, I think he could be one of the 4 or 5 guys that are truly a big league foundation to grow on. DeGrom, think of these names. DeGrom, Alonso. Got to put Conforto in there, or what he'd be worth.
Yeah.
Because after all, he's 32 home runs twice in a row. He's got a good arm, plays a good right field, and can play center field if needed. And he's a big piece of that lineup in the middle of it. And, of course, the pitching, DeGrom, and what have you as foundations, building blocks, I think we're sitting good. And I'm going to mention a name to both of you that we haven't aired this name in months.
The C word?
He who shall not be named.
The C word?
The C word, it used to be, we were wondering, will, what's his name, the second baseman from Oakland that they got, Lowry.
And
Lowry,
yeah.
if we'd ever see him.
Oh, Lowry.
I think he had 2 at-bats, if I'm not mistaken.
He had 6 at-bats, 0 for 6 and a walk.
Oh, okay.
Well, if he's back next year, he'll just be a bench guy anyway.
Right.
Because
but there's a
going to
new
be
name
third.
to think about with the potential of really putting us over the edge. What if you had Cespedes in a lineup that included...
he said the C word.
I had to. When I'm trying to set myself up to going through a winter of hopes and anticipation.
I haven't seen a report. Have you seen a report on him or heard anything?
No.
I've heard nothing.
No,
I
haven't heard a word. No. And don't forget, last year at this time, we were talking about, come All-Star time, if he could come in and, give us that, that boost. And imagine if that happened, okay? It really would have been a boost, and it may have put him over the top. But, you can't count on him at all. And then if, in fact, he does come around at some time, the guy has a broken ankle. Who knows what he's going to be like? So you really can't count on him at all. If you want to, kind of like hype yourself in, your memory bank a little bit, and oh boy, what if? But I don't think he can be counted on even 1 iota at this point.
Okay.
No.
I guess my fantasy
will remain a fantasy.
My real life fantasy league finished first time in like 25 some odd years of playing fantasy ball. on one level or another, mostly with Yahoo. I did some with Stats Incorporated early on when you couldn't even bring up players without making a phone call to them. They'd send you weekly reports and stuff. And I have, because of my impatience, always been a loser at this. And this year, the only thing I did differently, first of all, I had no reason to make desperate moves because people stayed healthy. And I shored up my bullpen really early. I got 3 or 4 closers so that wasn't always going to be an issue as in the past. But that's the only thing I did differently. I really can't believe it. It was just 97 points in a Yahoo League is, for me, never got over 90, never got further than 3rd place in the past. And so I'm kind of thrilled with that because a lot of my intellect, as it were, that's an oxymoron when you say Tyko intellect, but a lot of my thought processes, who am I going to bring up, who am I going to send, who am I going to keep when I was in keeper leagues, this, that, and the other thing, day-to-day stuff. It's a big thing, so I'm proud. That's all I want to tell you.
Very good. Nice.
But another thing related to this show, guys, my three clutch guys, really, DeGrom, Alonso, and McNeil. And then at the end, I picked up Lugo a little bit, got him, got some innings out of him. But the Mets really, really helped, and I think you had the same 3 players. Am I right on your team?
I absolutely destroyed my league. I mean, I won my league, and then I won. We do a playoffs as well, and I won the playoffs too. So I finished first regular season.
Yours is a head-to-head league. Mine is a. Am I right? Where you play other teams?
Yeah, mine is a head-to-head league. Yes, yours is
right, and mine
Roto,
is a
right? Right.
Yeah, so the Mets helped us that way, and you know what I really respect? That walk-off home run. They did not die after they were eliminated. That shows me a lot.
Yesterday, okay, if you stop and think about it, which I did, was a microcosm of the season. Okay, the beginning of the game started off, they got out to a lead. Okay, the beginning of this season, they got off pretty good in the first month. Okay, middle of the game, the bullpen lost the lead. Okay, what happened during the middle of the season? The bullpen was horrible. Okay, the end of the season, the Mets came on again and kept fighting and fighting and fighting, and then the same thing happened. So, I looked at yesterday and I said, my God, this game was like a microcosm of the season.
Absolutely.
Right. Nice to see Dom Smith, who worked so hard to get back at it.
Think he's trade bait, Ralph?
Pardon me?
Think he's trade bait? He can play.
He may have to be.
Because he can't play anywhere but first, really. He's weak in the outfield. And,
right. That's what I say. And they must weaken their bench a little bit to get better bullpen-wise.
I don't think they have to weaken their bench that much. I mean, they have a bit of a surplus. Their infield should be set, okay? If Lowry actually can play next year, he's your utility guy because he can play first, second, short, and third, and even a little outfield. Your infield should be set, right, with Alonso, Cano, Rosario, and McNeil playing third.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then your outfield, okay, if they get a center fielder, okay, if they don't get a center fielder, then you have Nimmo in center. I would think J.D. Davis in left and Conforto in right.
I heard
would
them
you guys
dangling
assess,
J.D. Davis.
Would you guys assess Cano's defensive ability for me, Marty? How do you see him?
Well, he's very sure-handed. There's no question about that. But you got to think that his range is not what it used to be, and he's got to be careful with his old legs.
Does he have a good enough arm to switch positions with McNeil and him play third and McNeil play second?
No, he's never played anywhere but second.
Okay.
I've never seen him anywhere but second.
He played a few games at first when he came back to Seattle after the drug suspension. They were playing him at first base, but but the Mets certainly wouldn't need him there. So.
Okay. Is McNeil could play third base every day. This guy's a terrific ball player. So,
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you're saying J.D. in left.
Yes.
Who in center?
Nimmo.
Oh yes, coming back.
When Nimmo came back from that injury, he played very well.
Yes, he did.
Absolutely.
I was unable to. I was trying to find, his statistics just since he came back, but I wasn't able to come up with that. But he gets on base a lot. He hits for power every once in a while, and he's a much better center fielder than Conforto. So he's not Lagares out there, but very few are. And unless they go out and get somebody from somewhere else, then it's going to be Nimmo out there at the beginning of the year. I don't think
we can live with that.
Sorry?
We can certainly live with that. That lineup is so much more formidable than anything we had going into this season that we could think about. Who would have thought, Alonso? We all thought that he was a winner, going to win the position, or this, that, and the other thing. Who would have thought 53 home runs? That's unreal.
Oh, no. No, absolutely not. No, that was...
Yeah, even putting the Bell's curve on it, he led the league in home runs. So, the Bell's curve of the hardest ball since Titleist, for Christ's sake. I think,
but everybody was hitting the same ball. So, and he
that's
led.
What I mean.
He led not only the league, he led the major leagues.
Right. Hats off to him.
Absolutely.
Hats off to the fans. I don't know if they were just being courteous, or do they not see things the way we do? When Cano came off the field yesterday, he got kind of a smattering of applause,
more than you would have expected, for sure. Yeah.
Right. That's. I wouldn't have been one standing up and going, "Yay, nice try! You really did well."
The one thing I'll give him though is that he worked hard to come back. I didn't think he was going to come back at all this year. Once he went out
from that hammy.
Right.
Yeah.
I figured, that was it. He was, packing it in for the year. When the team started playing well, he wanted to get back out there. He worked hard. He came back, did fairly well. He was hitting pretty decent, playing a decent second base. So I have to give him that. He could have very easily packed it in, and he didn't.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys for your assessment on one more guy, and that's Wilson Ramos. How about you? Start with you, Marty.
He's a very good hitter. Can always count on him for a sacrifice fly when you need one.
Right.
I don't understand why the pitchers don't want to throw to him. It's the way he sets up, or his arm thrown to second. I don't understand it. But I don't think he's that terrible. And God, we've gone years and years and years without having a catcher that can hit. So it's nice to see. They do have a kid coming up, Ali Sanchez.
Sanchez, yeah.
Right.
Oh, really?
He's very young.
Yeah.
And they sent him to the Arizona Fall League, I believe, and he's doing well. And he was at Binghamton last year, hit 278 in 71 games, and he could be up at Cuse next year, and he's very young, and I think they consider him to be the next guy after Ramos's contract is up.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We got something going in the pipeline.
Actually,
here's my theory. Some of these pitchers may not think that Wilson Ramos frames, and I'm using the expression that they use, frames a pitch well. Well, guess what? If that's still a concern in Major League Baseball, it won't in 3 years, because umpires calling the strikes, balls and strikes, are going to be phased out. They're already experimenting. They experimented in an independent league, the Atlantic League, and I think they're experimenting with it in the Fall League. And people don't realize, I talked to Al Clark, a former umpire, it's not where the ball ends up in the catcher's mitt, whether it's framed properly, it's where it crosses the plate.
Correct.
And if umpires are calling pitchers strikes that are framed properly, not necessarily strikes, if they're looking for how it looks for the TV camera, then they're just digging their own ditch in terms of job security. And I'm starting to think, I didn't want it to become all electronic and this, that, and the other thing, and the instant replays and this or that. Get it right, for crying out loud. I have never watched a season where I've looked and said, that was a strike?
Because
when
they show you those boxes, on the screen, and supposedly if you think that they're correct, then you see how many mistakes the umpire is making.
Right.
The problem with that box, okay, and the same thing that's going to be with the electronic strike zone that they're having problems with already, is it cannot be adjusted to the different stances of the players. Okay, it's a fixed. If it's a fixed box, okay,
it's got to be to the height of the players. I mean, if you got a guy that's 5'8" and a guy that's 6'5",
that's what they're having trouble with. Okay?
I can understand.
And then you also have the players like Ricky Henderson who would get in a crouch. Now the rule book says, okay, the natural stance of the batter. Okay, so the natural stance of the batter is however he gets up there every single time. Not just one time trying to get a walk, he gets into a crouch. But if the batter's natural stance is a crouch, okay, that's his natural stance. Whereas, a guy like Judge is going to have, or Alonso for that matter, they're going to have bigger strike zones, and they're trying to get that fixed. But right now, the way it works in the Atlantic League, the umpire has an earpiece in his ear, and he's told what the box has called. Okay, but he has the option right now, if it's, really egregious to call it the way he would have called it. Okay, because once in a while, if a player gets in there and the pitch is actually up, by his neck, and the box said that it's a strike, well, you can't call that a strike. So,
but do the electronics have the ability to call a strike, call something that the umpire, come back to the umpire who feels it's egregious, but maybe his call is egregious?
Yeah,
what they got to do?
They got to fix it, and they will over time. I mean,
they got to shrink the box to what the guy's standing at.
Yeah,
that's what they got to do. They got to shrink or expand the box to the guy's stance.
Right, or to his stance for each pitch. Adjust it for each pitch, because some guys change their stance depending on the pitch. Is it 2 strikes? Do they, that sort of stuff.
You see, but that's where the umpire's judgment comes in, okay, his normal stance. So when he gets the 3 balls, he can't all of a sudden shrink it up, and that's his new stance. Okay, the umpire has to have in his mind, okay, what his normal stance is, and still call his normal stance. Okay, you can't change.
But if they can adjust the technology to each pitch, to adjusting the box for each pitch, then the umpire doesn't really come into consideration.
Yeah, but once again, the batter, can't be allowed to change his stance on every pitch. Okay.
If they could adjust the technology to cover.
No, because now you're shrinking the pitcher's strike zone. The pitcher has a strike zone. Okay, you have to think of this, kind of as an umpire, the way I am. There's a strike zone. Okay, now the batter can't get into this little tiny stance where all of a sudden there's no strike zone. Then basically that's what's happening. It's kind of like when
that's what made Eddie Goodell so great.
Well, that's why they outlawed him too.
But he's got a perfect on-base percentage, so
yes,
he was outlawed. But
yes, he does. But
I mean,
it's still
he's got more perfection than you, I, or anyone else out there. Let those of you who have not Eddie Goodell's perfection cast the first stone.
Hey, I have just as high a batting average as he did.
That's true. That's true. And you didn't have to stand up there wearing 1/8 and everybody looked just a midget.
Exactly.
It's nice to have your name in the record book, but at what price glory when you think about it, for Christ's sake. And he's not a midget, he's a little person. But today, see how things are changing since we were kids?
Yes.
And it's political correctness, and that's one I don't agree with. I don't think calling a bunch of folks little people, there are little parts. No, they saw that there are no little parts, just little actors, that sort of thing. Really, it isn't something. Midget wasn't a bad thing. Do you remember, Mert, we used to watch midget wrestling when we were kids?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yes, yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. High, low.
Yeah, high, low, yep. He used to get tossed across the ring and bounce about 6 times. Yeah.
Yeah, and my mother didn't even don't call them midgets, call them little people. She didn't even say that. She wasn't. She would have corrected me on some level, but she had no idea about that. Rest in peace, Viv. You did the best you could.
She did the best she could with what she had.
Oh, yeah. Boy, it wasn't easy for the poor woman. Let me tell you. Marty remembers.
Oh, yeah.
you this. Does Syndergaard get traded? If so, do they extend Wheeler? Do they see if they could extend Wheeler and then decide to trade Syndergaard? Start with you, Robert.
Well, the first thing I think they're going to do is they'll tender an offer to Wheeler. Okay, and I think that tender has to be like around $17 million for the 1 year.
Okay.
And if he accepts that, well, then you got him for the year, and then you decide what you're going to do with Syndergaard. If he doesn't accept that and he signs with another team, then they get another draft choice. They get a supplemental at the end of the first-round draft choice. So I think that's step one, is you tender him and then see what he does. If he does accept it, and then you try to, negotiate a contract with him, then, maybe you do trade Syndergaard or see what you can get for him. But that would be step one in my opinion.
Trading him never was something I wanted them to do until this catching thing came up. He didn't want to throw to this catcher, that catcher. He doesn't earn that part. DeGrom can throw to anybody he wants. But how many pitchers on a staff should have that privilege? Certainly not a guy who, as Marty said the other day, doesn't know how to hold on a runner.
Right.
Oh, no, absolutely. And, talking about Wilson Ramos before, okay, he made adjustments from the first half to the second half. And, in fact, Keith Hernandez was talking about it on a broadcast. He was getting himself much lower, okay, actually getting down on his knees in the second half of the season. And I think that was one of the problems, because he would set up a little bit higher, so the Mets pitchers were not getting the low strike. But he did. He made an adjustment and got down much lower. And if you ever get a chance to see replays of some of the games, you'll see Nito gets down very, very low. Of course, he's a lot more flexible than Ramos, too, and is able to do that. And Ramos started to get down lower to the point where he actually got down on his knees sometimes. And I think that started making a difference. Like I said originally, that whole thing should never become public. And
as Marty said, we've got a catcher who can hit, and there's a force in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things that we could look at as a building block, for a championship team. I'm pleased. Would you, Marty, talk about Syndergaard, if you have anything to add to that?
Well, you got to keep one of those two guys. I mean, you can't lose Syndergaard and Wheeler. And I got a feeling that Wheeler is going to go. Somebody's going to offer him a multi-year deal, and he's going to take it. And in that case, if that is the case, then they have to keep Syndergaard. I don't think they can afford to lose them both, and then they'd still need to come up with another starter. And I think we've already discussed the possibility of moving Lugo into the rotation because he can't pitch 2 days in a row out of the bullpen. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but I think they keep Syndergaard and Wheeler walks.
Yeah,
but
did you guys note that Lugo's whip was like under 1?
Yeah.
0.90 something.
He's been great.
Yeah,
he's been terrific.
But
he can't come back 2 days in a row.
Right.
No.
That's the whole key next year, okay, is going to be Familia and Diaz. Okay.
Absolutely right.
If if they can clean out Diaz's elbow and he can come back 50% of what he was in Seattle last year, and they can get Familia straightened out, then they're what we expected them to be this year. And, you don't need a whole lot of other things added. So, spring training is going to be very important for those two guys. Last year, if you remember, they hardly used Diaz or Familia in spring training. They kept their innings way down, until the last week or so, and they started, giving them some time. I think they need to use them a little bit earlier this year and find out whether or not Familia's sinker ball is back and whether Diaz has got his stuff back.
And isn't spring training designed to build up your arm strength?
It used to be. I mean, in our days, starting pitchers would have to pitch a complete game in spring training before they were considered ready for the season.
Ah,
that's
good, very good.
Real history there.
Yeah.
And actually, for those of you out there, a complete game is when a pitcher pitches nine innings, and the game ends. How about that?
Revelation.
It's been a long time since I don't think we had one complete game this year. I think DeGrom pitched one.
DeGrom did not. Matz had one, I think. Yeah, Matz had one. And Syndergaard, I think, had one. Did Syndergaard win 1-0 or something? Had the game-winning RBI, pitch a complete game?
Yeah. Drysdale used to do that twice a week.
Well, Drysdale, Koufax, Don Newcomb, those guys used to pitch a complete game in spring training. And then they were ready for the season. It
was expected. It was a mindset that you were going to go. And I hearken back. It wasn't even when we were kids. How about a 43-year-old Warren Spahn pitching against Juan Marichal, and they each pitched 16 innings, and it was like a 1-0 game.
Right.
And Marichal said, if that old man could keep going, I could keep going. And they each had well over 200 pitches.
Yeah.
There's 3 complete games this year. Syndergaard,
all told.
Matz, and believe it or not, Jason
Vargas. That's right. Yes, Vargas.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yes.
That would have won you $3 million on Jeopardy. Coming up with that. And then you would have had to say, who was Jason Vargas? Because if you screwed it up and just said Jason Vargas, they go, meh.
He was a guy we used to have. That's who he was.
A guy we used to have, right? I'll take Stroman. Seriously, I think that's a plus right there.
Oh, yeah.
And he came around, got off to a terrible start with the Mets, came around where he was pitching pretty consistently. But
he had his ERA. He had the second lowest ERA out of the starters after DeGrom, 3.77.
Right. Now, one thing leads to another. Speaking of Mets starters, you said something on a tweet or on a message. Matz is what he is. How old is he?
28.
He's still a
not
lefty, and they developed late anyway. Still a great athlete. I think he can take it to another level. What do you think, Robert?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Matt, Marty said Matz is what he is. Well, Matz is a good number 4 starting pitcher. He's probably as good a number 4 as there is in the league. that's what he is right now. You have DeGrom as your 1, Syndergaard as your 2, Stroman as your 3, Matz as your 4, and then you need a 5. Unless you get somebody else, or Lugo comes in, and Lugo would be a good 5 to start with. But
I think he has the potential to be a number 3 or a number 2 guy. At least I hope so.
Potential, yes. But right now, okay, he gives you 200 innings. All right, he's been healthy the last 2 years, and that's what you want out of your number 3. You want your 3 guy to be able to give you innings, and he did that. He's done that over 2 years. So
let's give Reagan a lot of credit too, Phil Reagan, that their ERA must have dropped appreciably since when he took over.
Yeah, but he probably won't be back. I don't think he'll be back. He might be back with the team doing what he was doing before as a roving instructor or whatever, but I kind of doubt that he's going to come back as the regular pitching coach. At age 83 next year, that's going to be,
Well, I think they'll bring somebody in younger. I have a feeling that they'll keep him as an advisor. He won't travel, like he did at the end of the year, every city. But I think he'll be there when he's needed. Maybe he'll be based in New York or something like that. And if they need him to fly out, he can do that. I mean, I tip my hat to him just from being able to get from the dugout to the pitcher's mound and back. I mean, come on.
At 83 or 82.
He even ran a couple of times.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
I had to sit down after watching him do that.
You're right.
Just watching him.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Great show today, as usual. Wrapping up the season, but we'll keep the show going, and we'll follow it close. Let's
just let us know when you want to.
Anything you want.
Do it again.
I don't want to leave your thoughts out, Robert. Anything to conclude on?
No, I think we're closing this show and this season on a much higher note than we did last year.
No pun intended.
No, and feeling much better about the team. Would like to hear whether or not Mickey Callaway is going to be the manager. I don't want to see that hanging. As I said on my website, right now I wouldn't be surprised if they actually gave him an extension. To take away the specter of being a lame duck manager for this year, because he's a good soldier. He's done what he's been asked to do. He stands up. He takes the heat, even though everybody knows, Brody's pulling most of the strings and sending messages to him. He's never said that. He's never, said, well, it's not me. He takes the heat. He says it was his move, his stuff. So he's a good soldier. So, getting back to, is he going to come back or not? I'm with Marty. I think he's back.
Okay. If he's a soldier and following orders, it's impossible for us to grade him. Would you give Brody a grade, an ABC grade? Start with you, Robert.
I couldn't give him any more than a C. The Cano trade was a disaster. The Lowry signing was a disaster. Okay, keeping Alonso, good move. Getting J.D. Davis, good move. Signing Wilson Ramos, I give him a B on that. But that Cano trade and the Lowry signing, the Familia signing, F's all around there. So
okay, then give him a C plus, because he could not have counted on Lowry never giving them any time at the beginning. I mean, literally a wasted year. That was injuries. You can't downgrade management for unexpected injuries. So,
but age, Ralph,
I've said this.
Age.
Age was his age.
Yeah. You know, age is a factor in the injury. You got to keep away from guys at that age. You know?
Good point, but you weren't looking for a guy to play every day. You were looking for a guy where age would be an asset, almost. You know what I'm saying? Where
but I think but I think Brody was selling him as an everyday player when he signed him. You know, I mean, there was talk of, you know, trading McNeil because, you know, you're going to have Lowry and stuff like that, and that would have been.
In that case, give him a C-. How about that? I'm a tough grader. Everybody has always told me that I'm a tough grader. I'm fair, but I'm a tough grader.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Great show. Thank you for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zone Network, Marty Rose and Robert Cole, honestly the two best Met podcasters on the internet. And I've been on the internet before, so I know those things. Thank you, guys, and thanks again, everybody, for listening. Comfortably Zone Network. I'm Ralph Tyko. Adios.
Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.